If I could call this meeting of the Committee Ways and Means to order. Today is Thursday, March 14th, and it is certainly past 4:30, and we apologize. Real estate ran a little late, and we will definitely do our best to catch us back up. And if I could, I'm just going to open up with a moment of silence. If everybody could just bow their heads or take a moment of silence, please. Amen. Thank you all. Item 2 is the approval of the minutes. We did have February 12th. February 26th has been deferred. Is there a motion? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 3 is, well, this is strange. We normally have bids and purchases right after it, but okay, we'll keep going with that. Item 3 is budget, finance, and revenue collection and approval of the master lease purchase financing agreement for $7,923,270 with Bank of America Public Capital Corporation. Is there a motion? There's a motion on the floor. Any second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 4 is bids and purchases, and just one amendment that we will be removing item 4F, which is 7 Ford Explorers. The procurement department and fire department have asked to take some time to relook at that purchase first. So
move for approval.
4F, correct.
Move for approval with the removal of 4F.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 5 is Office of Cultural Affairs approval to apply for 2000 funding. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 6 is the Police Department approval to submit the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice. Any discussion? Who is the second?
Well, was Harry Waring? Okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 7 is the Mayor's Office on Children, Youth, and Families. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 8 is the Police Department. Any discussion? Yes, sir. Councilman Moody.
We're adding 85,000 here. Wasn't there some in the budget also for this? What is the total amount that was there? Is this a substitute or what?
This is the 85 that we budgeted for.
This is what we budgeted?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 9 is Parks and Capital Projects. Approve the International African American Museum for Value Engineering. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 10 is Parks and Capital Projects for the Lewis Waring Senior Center. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 11, Public Service approval of high battery stone revetment, whatever that. I'm not even sure what that's a new one for me.
Revetment repair.
Yeah, it's $35,000 and it's a repair. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 12 is approval of a low battery seawall repair change order for Palmetto Gunite construction in an amount of $116,816 for the continued concrete damage along 298 linear feet of the low battery wall. Is there a motion?
Okay.
Can we get a copy of what's left in this budget for the seawall? Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 13 is Public Service approval of emergency repair work by BNC Land Development out of $55,218.
I don't even know who.
Everybody's excited about that one.
I'll second.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 14 is executive session. Gosh, I guess we're going to try to do that in your office. Okay, all right. So is there a motion to move into executive session to receive legal advice regarding the pending litigation? Sure, that's a good idea. If there's no one opposed to that, we'll skip 14 and let's go to 15 and we'll take Chairman Moody's report.
Okay, the real estate committee met today. We had several items you can see on the list there. Items A through D were approved unanimously, so motion here will be for the council to approve those. Item E and F were deferred, and item G, the lease on the golf course was not approved. So item E, just as way of explanation, we wanted a little bit more information. We're going to take that back up in our first real estate committee meeting in April, and we just need some additional information on F also on that easement request. So I move for approval of A through D and the rejection of item G.
All right. Councilor Griffin?
Mr. Chairman, could you explain G, why it was voted down?
Yeah, the main problem was the cost. During the week of the tournament, from Monday through Sunday, there would be a golf lane, obviously, and so that's about I think it was about $50,000 was
Lost revenue
for those 7 days that we would lose in revenue. Now, our great finance people, they had already budgeted that into our revenue projection for the year, but we still were going to lose about $50,000. The USDA had agreed as part of the contract to make repairs for any damage, and they're going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 holes. So they agreed to pay for or to restore the holes to the pre-condition. But then that means, I don't know how, we don't know how long it's going to take us to repair them. So now we got, in addition to that, we can determine we can have a week or a month or something that the course is down still. And then when it's all said and done, we lose that revenue. And then in the fall, we're going to redo the whole thing anyway. We had originally thought that the downtime for the tournament would be followed immediately by the reconstruction of the course. But that had been pushed off 4 or 5 months. How many spots does this represent? How many? And so we could be down to a lot more. We just saw more revenue. I don't know that.
Yeah, and I think that the key thing that in discussion that really came out is they're looking at parking up to almost 2,700 cars on the fairways. And if y'all have been out to Muni in a while, it's a great course, but it is not in a position to park 2,700 cars on it. Now, and that was, I think, the biggest issue is that although they had agreed they would bring it back to the current condition or better, the reality is that it is highly likely it will be damaged, and when it is, we'll have further downtime. It didn't make a lot of sense because of the change in the schedule for the repairs.
Councilmember Moody.
Yeah. Microphone.
I just want to say also that
The country club and the USGA have been great about this. What they told us today was actually they came to us, or we actually went to them to offer the golf course. And the last thing that the UF Golf Association wants to do is mess up a golf course. And so they would, I'm sure, put it back. And this is nothing to do with the country club and the people out there and the golf association or the ladies tour or anything like that. This was just our decision that we didn't think we could afford the money.
Mr. Mayor, I think you had a comment first.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And I would ask that we vote on this matter separately from the rest of the Real Estate Committee report, because our community, the community of Charleston, really has a terrific opportunity by hosting the LPGA Women's Tournament. I also am not a golfer, so I have no personal vested interest in a way, other than my own interest in our great asset, the Muni. It's an incredible golf course, from what everybody tells me. I think I played it one time about 15 years ago before I quit playing. So The economic, I'm sorry that our friends from the Convention Visitors Bureau are not here, but maybe some of you know the statistics, but the economic benefit of this tournament being in Charleston is really quite remarkable. And we've kind of looked on this tournament as being a partnership with the city. We're a sponsor of the tournament along with the County of Charleston and the Convention Visitors Bureau. As part of this agreement, they've agreed to let us use the Country Club of Charleston for a major tournament to raise money for the renovation of the Muni. And as I think you all know, we are planning a major renovation of the Muni. And I realize there's some risk about if it's real wet that week of some damage to the course. But not only would the LPGA, I believe, use very good judgment in not using the course if they believe they would create a liability for themselves. But number two, I added an amendment to the agreement whereby we would have last say-so if we felt that the parking would endanger the course. And so I think it's very reasonable to approve this agreement with the United States Golf Association. It shows the spirit of our partnership and our thankfulness for them bringing this tournament here. They didn't have to come to Charleston. They could have gone to any number of places in the country. And yes, we won't be charging greens fees that week. I think you'd get a resounding sound of support from our players at our golf course for the LPGA tournament that's occurring here. We likewise would save some expenses, you know, during that week that we're not operating. It wouldn't make up for the loss of revenue, I'm sure, but it would. It's not strictly a loss of greens fees. So I would ask Council to kindly consider approving this agreement with the United States Golf Association. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I think I had Councilman Shade first.
Then Waring.
Okay. I'll let Madam Clerk keep track, otherwise I'll get in trouble.
That's right. So the mayor mentioned something about the renovation of the Muni, and I know we just discussed that not too long ago. What is our budget or the estimated cost for the renovation work that we're doing out there? Does anybody recall that?
The estimated cost is around $3 million. We had envisioned $1.5 million coming from the recreation bond that we've already approved. We also approved about $400,000 of hospitality funds, I believe, for the project, because we've been tracking the zip codes of everybody that plays golf now at the Muni. So we have about 15% of the visitors. Was it 15%? I might have the number wrong, but it's some percentage that we're tracking, so we're able to use some hospitality fans. Maybe it was only 8%. Thank you very much. But it's some percentage. So we'll probably need to raise about $1 million to $1.2 million, and I've been working diligently with some volunteers. We've already got commitments well over $250,000 towards that goal, so it's going well. Very excited about it.
If I could just follow up, Mr. Chairman, one more question to Councilmember Moody. So there was some, I'm looking at the map that Councilmember Waring just gave us. So we did not have an estimate or as to the extent of the damage that's going to be done to when they put the parking on here?
Well, the discussion in the committee basically was we don't know what the weather's going to be. If the weather's rainy or has been rainy, the USGA may elect, you know, just say, hey, we don't want to park over there because we don't want to mess up the, we don't want to subject ourselves to the fees to fix it. And so they could move it off. But if it's sunny and been sunny all week and they go ahead and do it, I mean, we don't know what the estimate may be. I mean, that's if you've played out there, you know it's kind of a low.
I know it all too well. I know all the marsh parts of it too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've lost enough balls.
I lost enough, too many out there that they can.
But I don't know if that answers your question,
yeah.
But we did discuss that.
So
Thank you.
We have Waring next.
I think Councilman Seekings had his hand up before.
Most low-lying holes along the Stono River, by the way, that's not part of the plan.
Most of them are on the front nine.
Right.
I think number
That's-
10.
that's correct.
On the back nine is, that's on
And I have-
Maybank.
I have you, Councilmember.
All right, Councilman Seekings?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of the things I heard in the chairman's report about this is that the way that this evolved from the get-go is that the city went to the USGA and offered up this parking to them. We're now 2 months away from this tournament happening, and we're sort of stopping dead in our tracks and saying we're not going to do what we said we're going to do. So I've got a couple questions. One is, this is 2,700 plus or minus spots. If they're not parking at the Muni, where are they parking?
If there's no,
If they're not parking at
Further
the Muni,
away.
where are they going?
Piggly Wiggly Center.
they had, there was 2 other sites that were identified, and Keith Benjamin can share. It was the VA Hospital and Citadel Mall, correct?
So to be clear, this was something that the police department supported us in leading, but the 2 locations that they had identified were the Citadel Mall and the VA parking lot that it currently exists. And those were the primary 2 ones that they had. There was an original ask when this first came to my desk about utilization of Brittlebank Park, and our department said no to that. We didn't want damage to that park space and what that exactly would look like. So I think it's something that USGA would have to identify. They also was looking at the McLeod Plantation, but there would only be a certain small part of that they would be able to use anyway, because again, wet areas. So really the VA lot and the Citadel Mall is primarily where they were going to be transporting, busing people back and forth to the golf tournament from.
And the VA lot's not going to be available during the week because the VA is going to be up and operational, right? So it's really the Citadel Mall is where these cars are going to go. So we're adding an enormous amount of traffic in an already overcrowded area. Having told the USGA they could use this space, and 2 months before changing our mind, I think that partnership is, we knew all these issues. We knew this was low ground. We knew if it rained there was going to be a problem. The USG said they were going to come back and make some repairs. I just think turning course at the last minute, we probably should have thought about this a little more in advance and not brought this up at the last minute. And I get it. We're going to tear up a golf course, which we shouldn't be doing. And if we shouldn't have been, we shouldn't have agreed it from the get-go. Recognizing too, and I don't know, was there a member of the USGA at the real estate committee?
Say that again?
Was there an actual member of the USGA there, or was it Mr. Ford who was there?
The country club.
Mr. Ford was
represented,
there.
right.
I mean, they do this for a living. They use golf courses for both golf and parking wherever they go all over the world, and to the extent that they had told us that they would put it back to where it was when they started, at some point you have some faith. This is a world-class event that's going to bring all sorts of people to Charleston. I just think we put ourselves as a city in a bad spot by getting out ahead of this, and now, 2 months before, changing the game, and I worry about that. And I wish we weren't in this spot.
Councilman Waring?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very good point, Councilman Seekings, at the last minute. And you were on the Budget Ad Hoc Committee 6-7 months ago. Our budget has made an exception to consider the $50,000 in income we will lose. None of us on the committee was told that. You sat right there along with me and the mayor. This last minute has been created by the mayor and his team. This picture showing almost 2,700 cars parked on the fairways of the golf course, you just had to see it. 2,700 cars going back and forth over the public space for $5,000. I actually did a calculation a little bit less than 2,700. It's $1.87 a day. Now, we didn't know that until our real estate committee meeting today. The transparency on this has been terrible. Why did it come to last minute? Because it was such a bad idea, they didn't want to discuss the pros and the cons. Many of us have been to golf tournaments, some of the finest golf tournaments all over the country. I hadn't been around the world, but I've been to Augusta National on Sunday doing the Masters. They don't even park on their practice field. I've been to the PGA, I've been to the Ryder Cup over in Kiowa. How many golf courses they have on Kiowa? 5? 6. They don't park on one of them. They don't park on one. And we went to them with this idea. There is no downside protection to the city. So if the damage comes out to be more than, it's discretionary. We say, no, that's not it's damage more than that. No, we think it's, we didn't do that much damage. So now, do we get in litigation? This tournament is not going to go away if they have to find alternative parking. It's a bad idea. Yeah, we ought to have more respect for the public space. This is a municipal golf course. We shouldn't do this with the public land. So, had I known this, or maybe the budget committee had known this in August, September, October, we would have had these discussions. It is no mystery that this is just coming to us now. Ask the pertinent questions. Why is this coming to us now? Now, I'm saying all of this, and I don't play golf, but I do respect the game. And I really believe that people holding this tournament respect the game and certainly respect the golf course. Let's say when we would have high parking needs, and we go to the country club and say, we need to park not in your parking lot, on your fairways, on the front nine. What would the answer be? They have more respect for their space than that. And they should. And they would be right. And so should we. Thank you.
Councilman Wagner?
What's the date of the tournament? You got that idea? You said 2 months out for the tournament. What are they dates?
June.
End of
Janie
May.
had the dates. Does Lori here?
End of May to early June.
First weekend in June is the
It's the
tournament.
week after Memorial Day.
That'd be the first week in June,
I think it's the 27th to the 2nd.
May 22nd. Okay. Now, by virtue of a former job that's a comptroller type out at the air base, especially in the services, part of what came to me was a golf course. I know what it costs to repair a golf course, guys. You're talking what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes, and then over, I guess that's over by our regular spots, by where we park, where our clubhouse and all is, on the other side of the road. So we're on both sides of 70, 700. That could be a bad thing, because you can't get up and down 700 in front of that golf course. In fact, we dug a tunnel, and it stays flooded. So, I mean, to get under Maybank Highway. I'm concerned about how much this thing's going to cost us on the backside, because fairways, 10 to 20,000 bucks a piece, greens, $25,000 a piece, and then you have lost revenue for a month, 2 months, 3 months. So it does appear to be pretty much all on one side, but of of Maybank Highway, but it's still a little bit scary to me the way I'm looking at it, and I think maybe another week or two of thinking about this and talking to some people that really know, because that is a very low golf course. I mean, I've played it many times in my life. I don't know, I think I might have missed a meeting out there as the golf committee or something, or I would have had a better idea, but nope, never came up. I didn't think so. I didn't think I'd missed anything, but so I would have thought that would have been the first place we'd have seen it. But maybe a special meeting of the golf committee, and let's have a chat. Let's find out where these numbers came from. I know when you go to buy a parking place at any venue, you're talking 30, 40, 50 bucks a day, and we get $5,000 period. Where's the rest of the money going? Is it going to be charged for it? Who's getting the money? I mean, I'd like to know that, because I pay out the yazoo, even going to Carowinds. So I mean, yeah, there's several questions here.
Councilman Moody, remind me, Chairman Moody, was it the statement made that this had gone to the Golf Commission? I mean, Harry, you're on the commission.
Yeah.
No, it did not. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought somebody had said it did. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
I'll defer.
Okay.
Okay,
I
so,
think the mayor said the golf community.
Oh, golf community. Oh, sorry, okay.
right, so it would be
Let's put a vote to
Councilmember
that
Griffin,
Okay.
followed by Councilmember Shealy,
And then Gregory and Lewis.
and then Gregory.
Ever
Lewis.
came up. So, Councilmember Waring, let me just get this straight real quick. We're charging $1.80 a spot,
$1.87
$1.87 for a spot for the whole week, right?
per day.
Per day, okay, and it costs $2 to park on the streets of Charleston for 1 hour. Come on, what are we doing here, people? $5,000 for 2,700 spots? Now,
Are you in the golf commission?
yes, I am. I would love to see this come to the golf commission. It never came up. So that right there is bad. But here's the bigger point for me. I get it. I get what you're saying, Councilmember Seekings. It's not fair to park these people at Citadel Mall and bus them over to the event. Well, we just bussed over the whole general community over to the USS Charleston ceremony from the Citadel Mall. We didn't have any problems at all. It was a packed house. It can be done. Not to mention, I just blurted out, how about the Piggly Wiggly site we spent $3 million on that's just sitting there that could be used for parking. We have spaces in Charleston that we can give them for a cheaper rate to make it happen. And guess what? If this tournament was going on in a bigger city, you can bet a shuttle service of 15, 20, 30 minutes, it's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal. We're doing a disservice to our residents, to the golf community, and we're going off a hearsay. The mayor's saying that the golf community supports this. It never came up at the golf commission, so how would we really know? It needs to be brought up to the golf community for real, and they need to weigh in on this. And $5,000, $1.87 a day, and I get why we're doing it. I mean, we're going to create revenue for the city through tourism, and people are going to be coming. But we have these public spaces that we've spent millions of dollars on that are just sitting vacant. Why would we not utilize them in these sort of circumstances? Doesn't make sense to me.
And now she goes on the end now.
Councilmember Shealy?
Yes, Councilmember Shealy, followed by Councilmember Gregory, Councilmember Lewis, Councilmember Shade, and then Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. You know, I heard Citadel Mall and I heard the VA hospital, but just on the other side of that creek, there's a lot of open land on Johns Island. Certainly, we could find space on Johns Island to park cars with all the open land that we have over there. So, you know, I don't know that certainly Citadel Mall could help, but I think there's some other options other than just Citadel Mall.
Councilmember Gregory.
A couple of things. This is a world golf tournament, and to me, to a golfer, the fairways is a sacred space. I have no idea why this world-class tournament would even consider utilizing a golf course for parking. That escapes me, folks. But my question is more of a legal question, and that is, if there was an agreement, what liability do we have if this is not approved by this body? Because it's my understanding that an agreement of such should go through the proper committees before it gets to this body, the body of a whole. We know that didn't happen, but my question is, do we have any liability here? Because an initial agreement might have been reached.
You know, I can't answer that because I wasn't involved in the initial negotiations of this.
Okay.
Let me check with Rick. Yeah, this is subject to your approval, and I can't speak to why it didn't go to a different commission initially, but maybe the mayor, I can't speak to that, but I can tell you that I know, at least from legal and Rick's point of view, we were attempting for months to try to negotiate this deal, and back and forth, and it took a while to get to this point. So up to this time, we didn't have anything, frankly, to present because the USGA, I don't think, knew what they wanted. So frankly, the suggestion that it didn't come here earlier, I don't think that was necessarily due to staff's lack of diligence, we were trying to bring this forward, frankly.
Thank you for that answer.
Councilman Lewis?
It's Jason Crossberg. I got a question, brother. Jason?
Jason's coming.
I know he's coming. Is there a policy that you don't park cars on recreational facilities, like parks and stuff like that?
For parking? Well, typically, the vehicles are not allowed outside of parking areas.
Okay. So this is considered a recreational field also, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the reason I asked that, because Jerusalem Baptist Church is on Rutledge Avenue, they wanted to install a pastor. And they were told they wanted to just use the park, they wanted to pay for any liability, any damage done, and they were told that you could not rent recreational fields. They had to go to North Charleston and install their pastor at their church, which is downtown. So that's why I asked that question. Thank you.
Councilmember Shade.
Do we know if they're charging folks to park on this, for parking?
My understanding is not, that these are mostly volunteers. The volunteers that will be working there, working the tournament will be parking here. They'll be kind of local people. I don't know that, I don't believe there was a lot of...
They also said they're VIPs.
VIPs, yeah.
So that went to my next question. These are not the spectators who are parking here. These are staffers of sorts and VIPs of sorts. So these folks will be coming from different locations from around all parts of the city. But do we know if the volunteers will be locals?
No, but usually in these tournaments, there's a lot of non-local, just people that go to every one of these tournaments just to work it.
Yep.
So I'm expecting it to be the same thing.
So does anybody know what the expectation is for the number of spectators coming, and where are they parking?
We're projecting 20,000.
And how are they being bussed in? From where? 20,000?
I wouldn't ask to fund that.
Can I make a suggestion that we move to defer or vote on this, and that we send this to, I don't know if it needs to go to the Golf Commission first or to the Recreation Committee first, but I think we've got a bunch of unanswered questions on here. So I'd make that motion that we defer. I'm not sure what is the appropriate Golf Commission or the Recreation Committee.
Well,
Since it's been denied.
It hadn't been denied by the council.
No, by the committee. I just want to know what the
well, it says it's denied. It said it was denied by the committee. He's asking for deferral. I think that's just some semantics right there. Oh, what do you mean?
It was already denied by real estate.
So denied, you mean like forever?
It was denied in real estate.
Right. But denied and deferred, could be the same thing that we're talking about. So if it's already denied and you're asking that it be deferred, I think it's the same. When you denied it, council member, did you expect to bring it back?
I'm bringing, we need to do two things. We need to vote on A through whatever. D. That's one unit. Those were all unanimously approved. Recommended approval to the body from the real estate committee. Item G was voted down.
It was denied.
Denied, and that is the recommendation to the body from the real estate commission, and we deny that as a body.
Okay, and then you also had E and F that were deferred.
Those two were deferred by the committee. We're not bringing forth.
We're just separating.
Right. Okay.
So as a procedural question, Mr. Chairman, can we, since it was denied at committee, can it be deferred for our consideration?
Well, that was my question. If it was actually
we can defer taking action.
I think we can.
I think it can, because the committee is not the whole.
Second the motion.
Okay.
We can do that. We can.
As a part of the real estate committee.
I tell you what, before we do that, why don't we take A through F just to clear that? That way we don't confuse.
Move for approval of
all
A
right
through
with
F.
that?
Move for approval A through D.
Through D,
That's right. Or excuse me.
Actually, I'll accept Councilmember Shade. Councilmember Moody's already made the motion.
I'll second that motion.
Councilmember Shade will be a second.
All right.
A to D.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. So now we'll take up G separately, and I think Councilmember Jackson is next for discussion.
Yes, she was.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I really appreciate, this was a hard discussion to have, and I do think that Councilmember Seekings, has a lot of insight in terms of the timing of why now we're deciding not to act positively on a recommendation. My understanding that was told to the committee is that the Charleston Police Department was asked to weigh in about likely good places to park, where they felt like they could provide the best public safety services to the people that needed to come and be close to the course and volunteer and then have their VIP free parking status. So it was a back and forth iteration of our police, I think the deputy chief represented the police department in deciding these things. And I do think that we're needing to consider the bigger picture in which we're asked to make this decision. It pains me to think that we're going to have to see some loss of revenue potentially beyond the $50,000 that was budgeted strategically at the beginning of our budget year, knowing that we were going to be not able to host golfers for that week of the actual tournament. And we have a big unknown. The mayor actually asked to amend the recommendation that was in front of the real estate committee, and I think that should be part of our vote right now as we're, once we take this up on deferral, that we would have the ability to decide as a city if the conditions of the course at that particular moment in time were favorable enough to park there. So that's not in the current agreement that the staff had negotiated with the Golf Commission or the USGA, but I think that that's a wise addition to any legal agreement that then we would vote on in final. But I do think that we need to consider that we're like the boosters here. We're asking an amazing event to take place in our region and in our city in particular, and it will bring the goodwill and the money that will be part of our revenue stream as we get ready to budget for next year. The direct loss to the Muni, and the other thing that I think the public should understand, since we're talking about this extensively at Ways and Means, that originally this was grabbed onto as a great idea to have the parking take place here at the Muni for all the right reasons that the police department and the USGA were excited to negotiate, because we were going to shut the Muni down immediately after and go into construction. So there would have been a disruption in the whole play of the course for the next how many ever months anyway. And that's how we got started on this extended negotiation. The fact that we're behind schedule now in being able to start the reconstruction of the course until later on this fall is not the fault of the USGA. I think, to be fair, we have to agree on that. So they were acting in good faith from, whenever they started planning, more than a year ago, for the logistics of this tournament. And they were acting in good faith that we were excited to be able to host them. This was a great location for safety and convenience, and then we would immediately go into the construction phase of the club. And it's on us that that has not happened for whatever extended reasons that maybe the Golf Commission does know about. So I do think we should defer. I think we should look at this more carefully. I don't think we should burn a lot of bridges. I do think that the fundraising committee for the Muni, the Friends of the Muni, is very excited to host a tournament as a fundraiser at the country club, and I wouldn't want to put that opportunity in jeopardy by saying no to this contract at the same time. So I think we have a lot of considerations to make in the way that we live into our reputation as a welcoming city and try to do our best out of this. Thank you.
Mayor?
So Councilmember Jackson makes a very good point that when this was originally conceived, we did think we'd be tearing up the golf course right afterwards, and certainly that situation has changed. I would ask for council to approve the deferral to give us an opportunity of good faith to work something out with the U.S. Golf Association. It is a matter of goodwill, and we do support this tournament coming here. And yes, we'll be glad to look at every other spot that we've got that we can park some cars, be it Piggly Wiggly site. You know, part of this complex equation was they wanted to accommodate their VIPs as close to where the tournament was going to be as possible. You understand that. And the other thing was it's during Spoleto, so even the River Dogs are in session, and a lot of our other parking facilities are kind of maxed out. This is a kind of very busy time for our city. So I would ask for council to please approve the deferral and give us a little chance to work it out, work something out with them.
Councilman Wagner.
All right, now that I had the dates, that's 8 work days, guys. 8 Mondays, either Monday through Friday days. You're talking trying to get to work from Johns Island, which is already a challenge to us because there's only one lake coming off Johns Island. Now, right in the middle of that drive, we're going to have 2,700 cars, buses, whatever, coming in and out. When they get to Folly Road, hey, guess where the other choke point is, guys? Folly Road. So we're going to have the same problem with people from James Island trying to get there from here, and it ain't going to happen. So, look, I mean, 8 days, you're going to be really making life difficult for at least probably 30, 40,000 travelers, okay? People that come on the night with those 2 islands. And that needs to be addressed as well. Apparently there's been some discussions, but it's not been with the Golf Commission and apparently with the budget people. So any type of deferral, any type of discussion, I think probably be good. But do remember what you're doing to the traffic. So Maybank Highway is the way, off the primary way, on and off that island.
I'm going to take Councilman Griffin, then we're going to try to move this along.
A deferral might be okay, but what's even better than that is to vote it down. Because if we do that, they can come back to us with a more competitive offer. And guess what? They could come up with some alternate parking spots and a more competitive offer than $5,000. This tournament is going to generate millions of dollars in revenue. I think they could come up with a little bit more than $1.87 a day when our residents are paying $2 an hour all over the rest of the city.
All right, Councilman Lewis and then Councilman Waring, and then we'll wrap it up.
The motion to defer, we know supersedes any other motion on the floor. But my thing is, if we're going to defer this, we got a great police department, we got a good recreation commission, and we got a good traffic and transportation director who should know the city. They need to look around the city and see if there's places in that area that they could park where it's actually to park cars while we are deferring this for 2 more weeks, to see if we can come up with some place to park these cars. I mean, I think we need to give somebody that responsibility if we want to defer it. And I think those would be the 3 great departments to be able to do it. Somebody got to take the responsibility if we're going to defer it.
Councilman Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Councilman Lewis, and we should not just idly brush off what he said. If it's our ordinance that we can't park in recreational areas, and we tell religious people you can't park on it, but we're going to let our golf area be used as a parking lot. It's a travesty that the LGPA will use a golf course as a parking lot. But fundamentally to the finances, Mr. Mayor, if we keep fooling around with our revenue stream like that, one of the best gifts that Mayor Riley and his team left to this city was a AAA bond rating. We're getting ready to go out for a recreation bond. If you play with the revenue stream, eventually you're going to have a downgrade in your credit rating. That's why these type things should not be last minute. And the part about, I appreciate, Counselor, this was, it took a while to do, but if we had the knowledge in our budget process to accept $50,000 in income Remember now, the rest of the Budget Committee didn't know it. And if the rest of the Budget Committee didn't know it, the balance of council did not know. So when we planned for the revenue and expenses for 2019, 50,000 was discussed that did not include any of us to say we're not going to have that 50,000 in revenue because from May 22nd to June 2nd, the golf course is going to be used as a parking lot. Now, anybody in business knows when you mess with the revenue stream, there's something called, you a former banker, once a banker, always a banker, okay? Debt to income ratio.
That's right.
Everybody loves that 1.2 to 1, right? When our revenue stream begins to go down, and we have some challenges, you all knew the hard work we put in the budget, getting a balanced budget. And we're just going to willy-nilly flip off 50,000 for an expense that none of us know. This tournament will happen without these parking spaces. There are alternative places to go. And if we defer it, that just delays the alternative parking decision. If we deny it, tomorrow they start working on alternative parking. And that's where we really should help out. So I'm going to vote against the deferral.
And I promise, last comment, and then we're going to move on.
Very briefly, I think one of the dimensions of this that hasn't been brought up tonight, and I don't think either Naomi or the police chief is here, but once you identify where you're going to put lots of people, whether they're parked or wherever they are, not only is this a logistics issue, it's a security issue, and I think we definitely need to make sure that we get the police department in on this because, again, we're compressed. We went to them. The police department was involved. They've been thinking about logistics and security and mobility and all those things, and I think at a minimum, should defer this to get quickly the police department to talk about this so we don't put that whole plan way out there, and I mean, we could blow $50,000 in 2 seconds on logistics, police, and all of that. I agree with everything that's been said around here on both sides of there's a lot to be said about this debate. We got ahead of this thing. We're late to the game. People have relied on it. Our police department has now planned for it. We're 8 weeks away. Give it a week or two. Let's defer this thing and let's come up with a plan. If we can't, we'll take them off this course. If we can, we'll do it.
All right, I'm going to move us on. I'm going to make one comment. I will say I've benefited from both, obviously, conversations here in real estate, and I'm going to vote against the deferral. And the reason being is, one, traffic, one, destroying the course, all the things that we talked about, the money. But the other thing is, the reality is, if we defer this and we move this forward, the course, the tournament's not going to say, oh, well, sure, let's wait till 6 weeks before to make a decision. They're going to move on. And I think that we owe it to them to say, look, y'all need to find an alternative, and let's give them as absolute much time as possible to do that. And we can certainly help out. We have plenty of staff that are very knowledgeable about the city and opportunities that we might be able to offer as alternatives. So anyway, with that, there was a motion on the floor. I believe it's been seconded to defer. All those in favor of the motion to defer, signify. Oh, let's do well, we do a raise of hands if that's okay.
I can see who it is.
All those in favor of the motion to defer, raise your right hand.
To defer. Okay, that's Jackson, Shade, Seekings. Okay, Seekings. Okay, Mitchell, Lewis, and the mayor. Okay, so that's 6.
Okay, and all those in favor of denying the motion to defer, raise your right hand.
Okay, so that would probably be 7.
And I can do basic math, and that's 7. All right, so now the motion to, I guess, needs to come back, and to accept the recommendation from the real estate committee? Is that what we need to do at this point?
Yes, which was denied.
Denied.
To deny.
All right, so is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the real estate committee to deny?
Second.
All right. Well, I'm not even going to offer any discussion. We're moving on. All those in favor of the motion to deny signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed? Nay. Oh, okay, hold on. Maybe we do have to have a show of hands.
Well, we know it's 7-6.
Same group. Okay.
7-6.
All right, thank you.
No, one exception if we can.
Can we talk about E and F even though those were deferred from the committee? I'd like to talk about those.
Say that one more time.
Okay.
E and F.
Yeah.
The deferrals of E and F, we've already voted on them, but we could certainly have some discussion.
We voted on 8. No, we voted through D, and we threw it on
we took
G.
A through, I thought we took A through F. We took A through D? Oh, excuse me. My apologies. Okay. All right, we'll go back then to
E and F.
E and F.
Which were deferred.
So I just have a question, if you don't mind. I understand the E in particular is the extension of a lease of the piece of property up on, say, Phillip Street, which will work as the laydown for where we're going to put the northern access shaft for the Calhoun West drainage project. And I'm just interested from the committee, either Mr. Chairman, or the committee, why it was deferred, and if there's anything else that needs to be done, because we're going to lose this piece of property at some point. They're going to go build a garage over the top of it, I think. So is there...
The lease we're currently under expires in October. I forget the exact date, 18th, 19th, or something like that, 21st. So we've got a lease until then, and we've got till July the 31st to either extend it or not do it. So we were looking for some more information as to whether this was the right, we think it's the right place for the shaft, but we don't know that it's pretty expensive to rent this property. And we know that there was some discussion around, there had been some discussions by staff and wondering about another piece of property for the laydown and went right next door, but it was available possibly. But we didn't get the information from that. And we are getting ready to, basically we didn't know where we were going to get the money. So the question is, if we're going to if we're not going to put this shaft down today, then we don't need to pay all this money. So we wanted some clarification on that. We've got a meeting this coming Tuesday, an ad hoc meeting to talk about drainage, and that was going to be a part of it, whether or not we were going to do this. So that's why we did.
If I could just follow up quickly, is it deferred with instruction to come back in a short period of time?
Yeah, we're going to bring it back after we have it.
All right.
We just weren't ready to make a decision tonight.
I think we definitely should talk about it at the ad hoc committee, and let's get something going on this one.
Yeah, and I'll add one comment to that. So, you know, what began the conversation was we know Phase 5 of the Spring Fish Burn has got a significant hole that needs to be filled, no pun intended, $15 million. The ad hoc committee is in the process of meeting to help identify funding sources that potentially keeps us from draining the drainage fund. I'm just full of puns tonight. And then also to start having conversations about Phase 5. And so we felt like it didn't make sense for us to get too far out on our skis on this thing with the Calhoun West project, because that alone, that tunnel by itself is $6 million. But it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. I mean, it acts as a retention pond, but that's it. So we just felt like it would be appropriate. The lease on that was $54,000 a month? A month. $685,000. So we just felt like it was appropriate to pump the brakes until we had that meeting, and then let's come back and have that discussion. That was really where it landed. Yes, ma'am. Did you have something else on another item?
Was there a source of funding identified to the extent you all had the ability to approve this? Was it coming from the TIF? Is that where that money?
Yeah, okay, that's right.
So we can bring all that up at the budget meeting?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Right. So your question, there was sources of funding for this project and for the lease. It's just a matter of whether council would like to prioritize that money somewhere else on another project. I just wanted to advise council that there was a provision in the lease amendment that would let us back out by July 31st. So it was really anticipated and communicated to the owners that if council didn't approve the funding to actually drill the shaft, to put the shaft in place, that we would be giving them notice that we wouldn't proceed with the lease amendment. So we had that protection there if we had approved the lease today, and I just thought I would share that.
Okay, so on these items, Councilmember Moody, when he explained this, recommended deferral. So that would be your motion to defer. We didn't need a second.
Well, I guess that would be the appropriate thing. I mean, we just decided we weren't going to bring them to council. We weren't ready to vote on them, so we didn't have a recommendation.
Right.
So I guess we voted to defer them. I mean, that was not necessarily.
Well, you said you were going to defer. The committee, I think, voted to defer, but
Right.
I'm talking about the committee of a whole.
I didn't bring a motion to
Oh,
defer
okay.
anything on this committee.
So we need
we'll
that.
need a motion for E and F.
Right.
Is there a motion?
Move the deferral. With
Of
the
E-
proviso, it comes back here sooner rather than later.
And that was the recommendation. So maybe the motion is to defer based on the recommendation of the Real Estate Committee.
The Waring, and who's the second?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, one nay.
And the ayes have it. And now we will go into executive session. Do I have a motion?
I have a
Councilman
question
Lewis?
before you have a motion.
Right.
Ma'am?
I was going to say, I think there are students here. There. I think
Oh,
there
yeah.
are students
Everybody's here for a city council
Mr.
meeting.
Mayor, Mr. Chairman, well,
Can I ask my
If
question? This item on executive session is something probably going to come up in regular city council meeting. Why can't we finish the agenda and go into executive session than to just go, make everybody sit here and wait and kick them out and then come back into city council? From the way I read this item, it doesn't seem, it don't seem like it's something that's dealing with ways and means. So I think we need to just wait till the end of city council to go into executive session and just to be kicking people out. My God. Yeah. Yes, we can do that because this is not
It's fine with me. We were just trying to give Francis an easy.
We had requested this as a courtesy to Ms. Cantwell.
Right.
Our former corporation counsel. But if the council is inclined to move it
And she may be
later-
charging us by the hour now, so we got to be careful. I'm not
That's
sure.
right. But if you're inclined to move it until the end of the agenda,
It's whatever the
end of
pleasure
city
of
council, we can
is.
do that too.
Do we have?
The only thing I want to say before.
We do. We have students.
If we got some students here, this is what I want to say. We got some students here that needs to go home.
Yeah.
So we need this release
Wanna go into
have them to
recess
come up
and-
before we go into, executive session.
It's fine with me. Is that okay with the committee? Francis, you okay with that?
All right, so we're going into
If it's okay, then we're going to go into recess. We're going to go ahead and go into city council. We'll come back in for the executive session. I think that's what we said,
Yes,
right?
that's
Is that
correct.
okay?
Are we going to do an entire city council or just the?
Well, I think do we have to take it up?
I want to,
City council, or we just defer the item
I
itself?
want the young people to
What
come in
we can
before.
do is
Going to city council.
the bond.
Yeah, but he's going to city council, so we can do that. We can't do that in ways and means.
Right, because we have to
do it in
take
ways
this up
and means of going to city
in
council.
ways and means.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. He's going to city council now.
So what Madam Chair was telling me is that because the item is on Ways and Means agenda, we do have to take it in Ways and Means committee. However, we can adjourn or go into recess with this meeting. We can take up city council. We can take care of these young folks who are here with us. Then we can reconvene and go back into
I'll make a
executive
motion that
session.
we,
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. And that is our plan.
we're going to city council.
All right, I said I was going to speed this up, and I didn't do a very good job at all.
Where they from?
I have a question to ask her as well. So rather than watch this here, we can talk about it.
Mr. Mayor.
All right.